If you've been told your autoimmune disease is simply your immune system attacking itself, that's true, but it isn't the whole story. Because here's the question I don't think we're asking enough. Why is your immune system behaving that way in the first place? I believe the answer to that question changes everything because an autoimmune diagnosis is rarely where the story begins, right? It's simply the moment your body becomes too loud for you to keep ignoring it. Welcome back to the Whole She Rises podcast. If you've been with me through series 1, thank you. Over the last several weeks, we've talked about burnout, exhaustion, brain fog, midlife rage, and hormones. And if you've listened to those episodes, maybe you've found yourself wondering, are all of these things maybe connected? The answer is yes. And that's exactly why we're beginning this series, because over the next several weeks, we're going to stop looking at symptoms as separate problems to solve and start connecting the dots. For years after my autoimmune diagnosis, I did what I think most of us would do. I chased symptoms. If my gut was acting up, I looked for another gut protocol. If I was exhausted, I searched for maybe another supplement. If I couldn't sleep, I looked for a sleep hack or a different strategy. Every new symptom convinced me that maybe there was one more thing that I hadn't tried yet. And don't get me wrong, some of those things held value. I learned so much. I met some incredible practitioners, and I'm grateful for every piece of my journey. But underneath it all, I was still living in a body that never truly felt safe. Without realizing it, I was asking an overwhelmed nervous system to heal while continuing to pile more work and strategies on top of it. More supplements, more protocols, more things for me to manage, more pressure to fix myself. Then one day, my functional medicine doctor said something that completely changed the direction of my healing. She looked at me and said, "Before we keep chasing your symptoms, we have to get your brain on track first." I remember just sitting there. Honestly, I wasn't expecting that. I thought we were going to talk about things like lab results, supplements, hormones, maybe gut health. Instead, she wanted to talk about my nervous system. And if I'm being completely honest, I was a little skeptical and a little frustrated. Part of me wondered, wait, are you trying to say this is all in my head? And are you telling me everything I've been doing has been pointless? Neither of those things were true. And thankfully, I was just curious enough, or maybe just desperate enough, to keep listening. What I began learning completely changed the way I understood healing. I wasn't being told that my symptoms weren't real. Quite the opposite. I was learning that my symptoms were very real, but they were happening in a body that had been living in protection mode for a really long time. My nervous system had become incredibly good at surviving, but it had forgotten what it felt like to feel truly safe. As I began doing that work, something really surprised me. The nutrition plan that I had been following started helping more, and the supplements seemed to work differently. My therapy started to become more productive, and movement finally started feeling restorative instead of just exhausting all the time. I didn't really change any of those things, but I had changed. Or maybe more accurately, the environment inside of my body had changed. Looking back now, I would say it more like this. Before my body could fully receive the support, my nervous system needed to experience safety. And that sentence has become one of the greatest shifts in my own healing. Because before then, I wasn't just taking supplements, I was asking an overwhelmed body to process them. I wasn't just changing my diet, I was asking an overwhelmed body to digest, repair, and recover. And I wasn't just going to therapy. I was asking a nervous system that still felt unsafe to process deep emotional work. I wasn't doing any of those things wrong, and my providers weren't doing them wrong. My body simply wasn't in the best place to receive everything I was trying so hard to give it. But as my nervous system became more regulated, my body became more able to receive the support. Not because the supplements suddenly became magical, or not because the nutrition plan suddenly became the perfect one, or therapy had changed, but because my body was no longer spending every waking moment trying to protect me. And I want to be really clear about something here. This doesn't mean nervous system work replaces good medicine. It doesn't replace wise medical care. It doesn't replace your nutrition choices, movement, medication, hormone therapy, or mental therapy. It means your body may become more able to receive the support those things are designed to provide. That realization changed everything for me. And that's when I began looking at my own story differently. I realized that first autoimmune diagnosis wasn't where my story began. Long before anyone ever gave it a name, my body had been whispering. Maybe you've experienced something similar. Maybe it started with exhaustion that you couldn't explain, or sleep that suddenly became so difficult. Maybe your stomach became more sensitive to foods that never used to bother you. Maybe anxiety seemed to come out of nowhere. Maybe your joints started hurting. Maybe your brain just didn't feel like your own anymore. Maybe every lab came back normal, yet deep down you knew something had changed. Those weren't random. Those were chapters. Your diagnosis was not chapter 1. It was simply the first chapter that someone had finally given a name to. One of the biggest shifts in my healing happened when I stopped asking, how do I fix this symptom? And I started asking, how are all of these things connected? Because the truth is, your body doesn't function in separate departments. Your hormones are constantly communicating with your nervous system. Your nervous system influences your immune system, and your immune system affects inflammation. Your gut is communicating with all of those things. Everything is connected. So when one system has been under strain for long enough, the others begin adapting too. That's why so many women reach midlife and suddenly feel like everything is falling apart all at once. Not because their body suddenly betrayed them, but because years of accumulated stress, hormonal changes, poor recovery, inflammation, and a nervous system overload eventually reached a point where the body could no longer compensate to all of those things the way it once did. I like to picture it like maybe a line of dominoes. Maybe for years you were caring for everyone else before yourself. You learned to push through the exhaustion. You told yourself you'd slow down when life got a little less busy. Hormones began changing. Recovery became harder. Inflammation quietly increased. And then one day, a diagnosis arrived. You often assume that diagnosis was the first domino, but more often it was simply the one that finally got your attention. Now, I want to be really careful here. Autoimmune disease is incredibly complex. There are genetic factors, environmental exposures, immune regulation, infections, hormones, and many other pieces that none of us fully understand yet. I'm not saying stress alone causes autoimmune disease. I'm saying the environment your immune system functions within matters a lot. And your nervous system, your sleep, your recovery, your nutrition, your movement, your hormones, all of that influences that internal environment. That's why this conversation matters so much. So this is exactly what we're going to spend this series doing together. We're going to connect the dots between stress and inflammation, hormones and immune function, your nervous system and autoimmune flares, gut health, recovery, energy, and why pushing harder often keeps us feeling stuck. Not so you become afraid of your body, but so you finally understand it. Because once you understand what's actually happening, you stop blaming yourself. You stop believing your body has betrayed you. You stop chasing every new quick fix, and you stop feeling hopeless. And instead, you begin working with your body instead of constantly fighting against it. If there's one thing that I hope you take away from today's episode, it's this. Your body has never been your enemy. It has been communicating, protecting, adapting, doing everything it could to help you survive. Remember what we talked about at the beginning. An autoimmune diagnosis is rarely where the story begins. It's simply the moment your body became too loud for you to keep ignoring it. Over the next several weeks, we're going to go back together. We're going to read the earlier chapters. We're going to start connecting the dots, because when you understand your body more fully, you stop fearing it. And when you stop fearing your body, healing has room to finally start taking place. If today's episode resonated with you, I think you're going to love this entire series, because every episode is going to build on the last. So make sure you're subscribed. And if this conversation encouraged you, I'd love for you to leave a comment below. Tell me this. When you look back, what was one of the first whispers your body gave you? I'd love to hear your story. And chances are another woman reading your comment will realize that she's not alone. Before you go, if today's episode made you realize your symptoms might be more connected than you thought, I want you to watch this next. It's the episode called What If None of This is Separate? Because that's really where this whole conversation began. I'll link it right here on the screen. Thank you so much for being here. Until next time, keep rising.